This person described about a time where he had not a fear in the world. And then he felt that he had lost it along the way. A lot of people cannot access their purpose due to fear. I started questioning that, is this what life is, one achievement after the other? And I went on a journey to figure out what really is happiness.
It is such a pleasure to welcome you on Yana TV. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is such a wonderful space. I look forward to talking to you.
Same here. And since our platform is about Singapore largely, and we are based in Singapore, and to me, you don't look Singaporean. So my question is, what are you doing here in Singapore?
I came to Singapore 21 years back in 2002.
Okay.
And my first job was after business school with Procter & Gamble in marketing. And that's how I came here. I knew very little about Singapore, but I just enjoyed living here. I then went to consulting. I started my business here. And then I've been here for the last 21 years. And the funny thing is, people say you've been in Singapore for so long, but I think every 3 years it changes.
There's
true. Something new that
true.
emerges. Your group of friends change because people keep traveling in and out. The city changes. So I love staying in Singapore.
Wow, you are long. Are you Singaporean?
I've applied 3 times. They don't want me yet, but I'm a PR.
Sorry. You are PR.
Yes.
Okay, so you're 21 years old. You're here longer than I am. I am only 15 years, and
wow.
I am Singaporean by now. So that's
Congratulations.
why I asked. So thank you. Yes, and so I feel that also a big part of this show, it's my contribution to the country. It has been very generous to me and my family, yes. And I feel, well, I don't look like Singaporean either. But then, sometimes they say it takes an outsider to have a really honest and open conversations which are non-biased, right? So maybe that's my bonus. I don't look Asian.
Yes.
Good to have you here. Which country did you move from 20
So I
years
was
ago?
from India. I was born in India, and it's an interesting story. I was like in a very small town in India. And growing up in the 90s, my worldview was really small. And something very interesting happened in India in the early 90s. It opened up. It was very insular. They got foreign investment in. And as a young kid, the difference that it made to my life was cable television. So suddenly we turned from 1 channel to 20 channels. And it's the first time I saw MTV. I saw these dramas where I saw people living these beautiful lives, traveling, jet setting. And I thought, that is what
That is
is.
life, right?
That is life. And that is what set my inspiration to go live in a global city. And from that point of time, I started working hard, doing well in academics, and then went into a good school. That gave me the opportunity to come to Singapore and work in this beautiful global city.
It is interesting. We were just speaking today, especially about how we choose careers in this part of the world. And you just said India, it's probably the same as it would be in Singapore and many other Asian countries. You work hard, you choose the right path, you do what your parents tell you to do, and then you go to the university, usually if you can, and then you get a job and you start working.
Yes.
And today, for us, the theme of our conversation here is the meaning at work. Isn't it interesting, right?
Absolutely
Tell me about that. When you graduated as a young kid from the university and you joined all those companies, what happened?
So my thought on life was that life is one achievement after another. That's what led me to this. So I worked hard and did well in school, which was achieving well, which led me to a good university, like you said, which led me to a great place like Singapore. And every stage I was happy, and I thought, this is what life is. I went to a new company, I started businesses, and I was doing well. And then out of nowhere in 2013, I had a huge tragedy. So I lost people who were close to me. And
I'm sorry about that.
yeah, that was a huge loss. And that then kind of just shook me up. And during the healing process, as I was getting back to life, I started questioning that, is this what life is? Is this what happiness is? Is this what life is, one achievement after the other? And I went on a journey to figure out what really is happiness, because something out of nowhere can hit you, and then
all those achievements and money and success
don't matter.
Suddenly doesn't make you happy
Doesn't make you happy anymore. And as I spoke to other people who looked successful, who looked to have it all in place, I realized they had a deeper conversation with me, and I realized not everyone is happy. They might look it, but there's something beyond achievement that makes you happy. So I went on a journey in spirituality. I was never spiritual, I was never religious. So I started embracing and seeing what was there. Philosophy, psychology, I read a lot to figure out what really does it take to be happy? Like, how should we live our life? And all schools had different teachings, but one clear thought that was there everywhere was the path to happiness is deep inside. There are these noises that distract you, that expectations from others, expectations from parents, from society, from partners, from relationships, because of which you start going one achievement after the other. And at some stage it catches up with you and you realize, damn, I've been climbing the wrong ladder. There's other things to life. And that's what opened me up to this, that what is this deep thing? How can we access it?
But by that time, you would
point.
spend a lot of time
Yes.
learning and studying and creating your network and building your career,
Yes,
only
yes.
to realize that's not where you want to go.
Yes.
Not an easy place to be.
Yes. And having said that, in my view, initially I felt that this achievement mindset of going after goals is bad, money is bad. But as I went through it and I realized there's nothing good or bad. It's okay. It helped me get to where I want to get. But there is more to life, and it's being conscious on the path that you're going after. Maybe at some stage you want to accelerate and go forward in life. And yes, by all means, go to it, but do it consciously. And maybe at some stage you want to live a holistic life. You want to deepen bonds. You want to understand your potential and fulfill it. You want to make a bigger impact, and do that. But these are 2 or 3 options available to you, and being conscious and aware about it is what leads to fulfillment and meaning.
I love that. And it's also very interesting often when people talk about success, as you said, so at the beginning, especially in this part of the world, it's just
Yes.
conditioning also from the society and the
Yes.
family that you have to be successful in a very particular way, how people
Yes.
traditionally were perceived to be
Yes.
successful,
Yes.
which is a lot to do with the money and status and
Yes.
power. And then it was interesting for me to watch this, the whole wave of society went first through this, and then people like, no, doesn't bring us happiness. We don't want any of that. And then people go into spirituality only to realize everything is important. And it's like what you said, it's not, even if you look at the ancient texts, no master ever said, don't have money. They all said, don't be attached to money. And there's a big difference between the two. So, and I think, in fact, that people who are actually more conscious and more aware and want to genuinely do better things for the society, if those people have more money, then we're all in a better place, right?
Absolutely. There's a practical aspect, like you said, to money, which has a multiplier effect to many people who can live good lives and put food on the table for family. So that is important. And you touched on attachment, and that reminded me of something. And I know you're a big fan of Buddhism as well. There's this book I read, Open to Desire. I don't know if you read that. Phenomenal book where Buddhism does not say, do not go after desire. Desire is there. But it talks about experiencing it with an open fist. Enjoy it. If it goes. That's fine. Not with a closed fist that you clench onto it. I don't want this to go. I've got this car. I've got this money. I don't want it to go. And I found that visual very powerful, that yes, enjoy good things in life. But if they go, there's impermanence. That's all right. That's okay. Accept it. And having that wisdom as we go along kind of takes you away from attachment and helps you enjoy the present moment. And that's pretty much what mindfulness, Buddhism, and all things are.
Yeah, and all these conversations about consciousness.
Yes.
And, to me, it's very interesting. It's one when we talk about it on a personal level, and I
Yes.
can see, you have been on a journey, you went through loss, so, and now you discovered yourself, and now you started also teaching others. That's what I'm also curious about, because in your particular case, you go into big corporations and you talk about purpose of work and meaning of work. So how does that go?
So that's an interesting point. When I initially wanted to go down this path, I was trying to play low because I realized fame, all these things are not good. But over a period of time, what would happen was when I would see my peers, they did not have this kind of realization. So they kept going up. And I thought, now that I'm thinking about meaning of life and fulfillment, I should not get jealous. But I did get jealous.
I like your honesty.
I did get jealous. I said, wow, they're going up and up. And it kind of, and I then got upset with myself for getting jealous that, hey, I'm on another path. Why am I looking at these worldly things? So I had that journey. And through that journey, long story short, what emerged was that in whatever I do, if it's fulfillment, my desire to shine and do well and make a bigger impact is huge. And that's not something I should cut off by playing small. That does not mean fulfillment doesn't mean you play small. And I have the skill of going into corporates. I've done that. I've created a business
Because
around
of your
that.
background, right?
My background is that. My business that I've created is also selling to corporates. So I know that. and I can make a difference. I know that people at work go through similar things that I've gone through, and I can make that difference out there. And why not go out and shine and do that? So once that realization came, then I decided to do it in a bigger way. I decided to go into companies, I decided to start a podcast, and I've been getting a huge amount of fulfillment doing that, where it's you are getting better and better because you're building that skill. And I'm using different things like creativity, and earlier it was more analytical skills. But at the same time, you're shining and moving ahead in life.
Can you share with us maybe like a particular, you don't have to say the names, but maybe like a story of a person who have been, or maybe a manager or a leader who, what was the reaction?
So I can share two very interesting stories.
Please, yes, I know.
This was while working with a bank, and I was doing this in Malaysia. And one of the exercises that I do when I talk about this is I help them do a meditative exercise. These are leaders very old who may not have, who are going one after the other in terms of achievement and making sure their work goes forward. So when they stop and go within, and I ask them certain questions to see when they were most alive, when they felt great, the one trend that I've seen across based on this story is they go back to a time in their childhood. And this person described about a time where he had a visual of him going down a slope on a cycle, his hair flying all over the place, having not a fear in the world, feeling invincible. And then he felt that he had lost it along the way because of all these responsibilities. Now he needs to make sure his boss is okay, his family is okay, he can't give up on his career because the money is needed. He feels trapped. That fear
happens
has
so
come.
much to so many people.
It happens. So I think the biggest thing I noticed was a lot of people cannot access their purpose due to fear. And there are practicalities for sure. We have responsibilities. But if we are only stuck in that, then we don't have the courage to look at what is important to us. Because once we have the courage to do that, and we take into account practicalities, we can create a path that can bring this together.
I love that. This is a great story. You mentioned the podcast.
Yes.
And well, I do know that at some point your podcast was ranked top 3 in Singapore in business category, right? And it's still in the top 5% in the world, and specific in this category, still being ranked. And the podcast is, what is the name?
How to Live.
How to live, clearly. So the podcast is about how to live. And how long have you been doing it now?
So I started this in November 2021, so it's a little less than 2 years.
I'm asking because so many people have been starting podcasts and many actually stopped. So hooray for you to actually continuing that and doing that. So what was your biggest learning since you started after doing it now for nearly 2 years?
I think the number one thing is consistency. Because if you call out that, hey, I want to do it every 2 weeks or whatever period you call out, you have to make sure that you do it. And even before I started it, I'd done a course in podcasting, and the guy, Pat Flynn, which I would recommend, I can drop links to the course if people want. He said, don't start a podcast till you have 20 topics in mind. You need to know 20 episodes because you have enthusiasm, you can do 7, 8, but after some time life comes in the way and it gets difficult. So you have to find a sustainable way of consistently, even if the content is not the best and it's not up to your standard of doing it. So that was my first learning. The second learning is, of course, do it based on passion, like something you're passionate about so people can hear your voice and they know that this is exciting, this is passionate. Even if they don't believe in it, I think passion is infectious. And when people hear authentic passion, they gravitate to it. And the third is something one of the big podcasters, forgetting his name, Guy Raz, is a huge podcaster. And I think he said something that if I have someone's attention, I don't want to waste their time. So I want to give them, be precise. For me, it was edit a lot because I didn't have natural skills to talk. So I would be saying a lot of things, and my interviews were not as good as your interviews. I'd be asking all kinds of questions, long-winded questions which are irrelevant. Edit it. Make it simple so that the listener gets quality. So I think these 3 things help, but you never know what other things were. But to me, I keep these 3 things in mind as I do it.
I love this. This is a great learning and also tips for people who are content creators. You know, so let's remember to keep it clear, precise, and consistent. A question about your family. You mentioned that you were born in India and this is where you grew up. Tell us a bit more about your parents.
I was very fortunate to have a very good childhood, very balanced childhood. And like I said, I grew up in that small town. I felt a sense of safety. My mother gave me a lot of love, and I was very close to her, but she also pushed me and helped me realize that I could be good in academics. I could do well and go places. So that confidence, I think my mother built. And when she would tell me that you are special, you can do anything, I believed her. And that kind of helped me along the way.
Good mom.
Good mom, excellent mom. So I think she kept the right balance, but pushed me and helped me get my potential. My father had the big picture thinking. So he ran a business, and he would tell me and explain to me how to look at the big picture, how to look at vision, and how to think about things and setting things and structures up for the family. So I think I got that from them. They are fortunately very proud of me. They still live in India. Now they moved to a bigger city, they live in Delhi. They're proud of me. Of course, we try and meet as often as possible and have a very good relationship, fortunately.
And so when you came here 21 years ago, right, to
Yes.
Singapore and staying, I mean, as you said, I mean, Singapore is changing like
Oh.
every 3 years,
Yes.
just with the development, with the people coming and
Yes.
going and new people coming. So it's really interesting place. What do you see is happening right now in Singapore, like from your observation?
That's a good question.
Tough question.
Very tough question. Very tough question. I would say right now, that's what's already maintained, at least from the way I see my life. There's a mixture of tradition and dynamism, and I think that's still there, where the sky is the limit if you want to do anything, and I think that still remains in Singapore. But at the same time, there's grounded in some amount of tradition, Asian tradition, family, community, and I think that's a good balance which Singapore continues to maintain. In terms of people, it's a difficult thing when you have friends who are non-Singaporeans.
Yes.
Because the non-Singaporean friends, after every 3 to 4 years, they leave. Because many of them have regional jobs. So you could have a good group of friends where you're having good fun, but after 3, 4 years, they've gone.
I could relate so much. After being here 15 years, I
Yeah.
lived through 3 cycles of making friendship like this
That's
with
the thing.
people. And then at some point, I gave up. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus on my family and people who are here for a really long time.
Yes, so Singaporeans and people who put their roots down.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, there's no point to invest time into relationship.
That's one of the things. So, but at the same time, that dynamism is that like outside view is good, but yeah, I think that's where you arrive at that. How do we balance friendships in that way?
Okay. Do you see yourself staying here?
Absolutely. There's at least for me, and maybe I'm biased because I live here. There's no better place because it's a great combination of all these things. So you meet smart people. It's modern. You have multiple opportunities. At the same time, where people sometimes say Singapore is not a soulful place, I found my soul in Singapore. I found it in the yoga studios here, in the meditation studios here. I found it here. There's enough greenery to go and find yourself, find solitude, find reflection, and reflect. And people are good. People are generally very nice in this country. Luckily, they've given me PR, so at least me and my whole family is PR. Our roots are here, but maybe we can get to be citizens at some stage.
And with all the work that you are doing also about the meaning, right?
Yes.
So since you mentioned family, I assume children?
Yes. I have 2 girls. Again, the elder one is 3.5 and the younger one is 1.5.
Beautiful. So they're
And
very young at this very tender age.
Beautiful.
So when you look at your children, so daughters, right, in your case, what would you like them to know about the world?
Well, they're such beautiful, innocent girls. And I'll just give you a side story and come to that.
Please, I told you I love stories.
Today was the first day my youngest daughter went to school. So when I dropped them to preschool, the elder one was holding the younger one's hand because she's also in that preschool and taking her. And it was such a beautiful moment. Their mom took them and I was dropping them off, where I saw the 2 girls with their bags holding hands and their mom and just smiling and going. It was beautiful. So let me get that beautiful moment off my chest. I think in terms of life, the key skills are, for me, I think resilience is a very important skill because there's going to be ups and downs in life. And if I can help them understand that it's about facing these as they come along, accepting them, surrendering to them, and then over a period of time taking control and moving forward in life. If that skill they can develop, I think that's a huge skill. Second would be also understanding their potential. So there's of course a lot of noise around, which we talked about, expectations, people want you to do different things, comparisons. They do have a role to play. So while they focus on that, can they also take some time to focus on themselves, to understand what's happening to themselves, what's important to them, and thereby understand what they're meant to do and go out and do brilliant things, whatever they're meant to do. So if I can leave them with these messages, and then of course be good people, be a good citizen, be nice to people, be kind, be generous in your own way, it would be a great thing to be able to do.
I have a tricky question. Okay.
Oh man.
I love tricky questions.
All right.
Since you're talking about resilience and they live in a comfortable country, their life is comfortable in that sense. So there's not enough adversity. Like, how do you actually teach them resilience when you love them genuinely and you want them to be comfortable? But then how do you do that?
I think it's a great question.
So that's what I mean, it's a tricky question.
That's a great, tricky question, and I think it's a difficult one. In my view, there are two types of adversities, if I can just simplify. There's of course discomfort, and I think you're referring to that, where things go wrong, maybe your parents can't put food on the table, things go really, really wrong. But there's also emotional adversity, which everyone, no matter who you are, you're going to face. And that could look like you go to a school, all the girls boycott you, and you're the alone girl. Your parents things may not work out with them. There are many, many things that happen in places like Singapore which can cause emotional issues, which children are bound to face. I think what we need to do is, of course, we help them get perspective in life that this is a privileged life from a comfort standpoint, and expose them to places which are not that comfortable. So I think that's from a comfort standpoint. From an emotional standpoint, I think it's supporting them and helping them build those skills, because that is the more difficult one. When you're bullied, when something happens to you, how do you manage it? And I think for all parents, the tendency is that I'm going to protect my kid and I'm going to go out and make that happen. That's my tendency as well. But can I help build the skills in her that both of them can develop that internal resilience to face that, to feel bad, to have that emotional outflow, but then slowly build themselves up and handle the situation.
So give us then, since I'm also very curious for the younger generation who is listening and now wondering, well, I'm bullied at school, what do I do? And I maybe can't even, I definitely have been bullied at school. No one told me when I was little how to deal with that. So I'm just curious, how do you teach your girls? Like how a young person can handle themselves in those kind of situations?
I think it's a great question. I think what starts at this age, based on my reading as well, is you can teach them being clear about their emotions. So knowing what they're doing. So how are you feeling? I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling angry. And that's a great learning opportunity, that I am angry. I'm just angry. Calling it out, acknowledging it, knowing it. And fortunately, my daughter is able to now call out various emotions. And when she reads books, instead of the story, she'll look at this person's angry or happy or sad. I think that's a good starting point, because emotions is what makes up resilience. Understanding emotions.
So it's emotional intelligence.
It's emotional intelligence.
We're talking,
so I think
right?
that's the first stage. And then, of course, the other parts to it is self-esteem, that I am important. It's not that, hey, I can just think people can do anything to me. I am important. I have a role to play in life. And I think that can be built up by highlighting their skills. And then, of course, and by highlighting skills, there's a balance between discipline and highlighting skills. So I think emotions, self-esteem, which are the cornerstones of resilience even for adults, you can start to build in kids in a small way. And hopefully as they go on, they develop it more and more.
I love that. Those unexpected great parenting advice. So thank you so much, Sharad, for showing up here with us today. It was a pleasure to have you on Yana TV. And as we have been saying before, guys, please absolutely do contact with us and also comment under this particular video about maybe what's happening for you, if there is anything around resilience or around meaning that stands out. You want to have a conversation about it. We're going to check, the comment sections and have a conversation about it. And as we always say, of course, do share the video and subscribe. And the more we share this message, then the more we start also educating and bringing the best in ourselves. So thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thank you, Yana, for creating the space for such a wonderful conversation. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day.